Apply. Beneath the surface of our world lies a story few dare to imagine. Hidden labyrinths, secret chambers, and entire civilizations carved in silence under our very feet. For centuries, Apply, these underground cities have guarded their mysteries, some for survival, others for worship, and many that remain unexplained to this very day. Tonight, Apply, we journey deep into the forgotten walls of history, where stone whispers, where darkness hides untold secrets, and where the past breathes just beneath the ground we walk on. Apply. Are these places merely shelters, or were they gateways to another realm of human existence? Before we unveil these astonishing wonders, don't forget to like, subscribe, apply, and comment to keep exploring the extraordinary with us. Apply. Deep beneath the rolling plains of central Turkey lies one of the most astonishing human achievements in history, a vast subterranean metropolis known today as Derinkuyu. Apply. To stand above it and know that beneath your feet stretches a labyrinth large enough to shelter an entire city is to realize just how far ancient civilizations were willing to go to survive. Apply. Derinkuyu is not a cave system carved by nature, it is a man-made marvel meticulously chiseled into soft volcanic rock thousands of years ago. Apply. The sheer scale alone is staggering, spanning at least 18 stories deep, with the capacity to house as many as 20,000 people, along with their livestock, food supplies, Apply, and even their religious sanctuaries. Imagine the first descent into these passageways. Narrow corridors force you to duck low, walls pressed tight against your shoulders. Apply, the only light carried by flickering torches. Suddenly, the tunnel opens into vast chambers, rooms large enough to hold entire families. Apply, underground wineries where grapes were crushed in the dark, stables where animals once brayed. Apply, and kitchens blackened by smoke that drifted upward through carefully engineered ventilation shafts. This wasn't just a shelter, it was a fully functioning city beneath the earth. Apply. What drove a society to construct something so extraordinary? Historians believe Derinkuyu's origins date back to the early Phrygians around the 8th to 7th century BCE. Apply, later expanded by Byzantine Christians seeking refuge from invading armies. This was a city designed for survival, hidden from enemies who swept through the Anatolian plains. Apply, at its peak, Derinkuyu was a sanctuary where thousands could vanish underground for months, living in safety while wars raged above. Gigantic circular stone doors, Apply, some weighing more than half a ton, could be rolled across passageways, sealing off tunnels from invaders. Each level was carefully planned with wells for water, storage rooms for grain, Apply, and chapels for prayer. Nothing was left to chance, and yet for all its practicality, Derinkuyu carries with it an aura of mystery that lingers even today. How did ancient builders Apply without modern tools, carve out such a massive underground fortress? The volcanic tuff is soft, but shaping it into miles of interconnected rooms required skill, organization, Apply, and generations of effort. The precision of the ventilation shafts, providing clean air across multiple levels, suggests engineering knowledge far ahead of its time. Apply. Some researchers argue that the sheer size of the city hints at threats far greater than ordinary raids. Could have been a refuge from catastrophic climate shifts, natural disasters, Apply, or even events that remain unrecorded in history. Walking through Derinkuyu today, it's impossible not to feel the weight of centuries pressing in around you. Apply. The walls bear the scratches of hand tools, each mark a reminder of the human hands that carved survival into stone. Apply. The silence is profound, broken only by your own footsteps echoing off the rock. In one chamber, you can almost hear the bustle of daily life, the bleating of animals. Apply. The chanting of prayers, the laughter of children who grew up never knowing daylight for weeks at a time. In another, the cool air whispers through narrow shafts. Apply, carrying with it the same breeze that once sustained an entire hidden world. Derinkuyu is more than an archaeological site, it is a testament to resilience, ingenuity. Apply, and the lengths humanity will go to endure. Above ground, empires rose and fell. Armies clashed, kingdoms expanded, and history was written in blood and fire. But beneath the soil, Apply, a secret world endured, carved not for glory but for survival. And as modern explorers trace the labyrinth's winding paths, the city continues to ask silent questions. Apply. What dangers once forced thousands to abandon the sun, and what other secrets still lie buried, untouched in the depths of the earth? Apply. Beneath the windswept valleys and peculiar rock formations of Cappadocia, Turkey, Apply, lies a hidden world that seems born of legend, a vast network of underground passageways and interconnected settlements stretching for miles beneath the earth. Apply. While many people know Cappadocia for its surreal landscapes of fairy chimneys and hot air balloons floating at dawn, Apply. What most don't realize is that beneath this dreamlike surface exists one of the most extraordinary and mysterious subterranean systems ever constructed by human hands. Apply. These underground labyrinths, some still undiscovered, tell a story of survival, resilience, and imagination beyond measure. Apply. Imagine stepping off the sunlit ground and into a narrow entrance that plunges down into the earth. The tunnel winds deeper, Apply, and suddenly you find yourself in chambers carved from soft volcanic rock, connected to other chambers, and then others still stretching outward in all directions, apply. What appears at first to be a single underground shelter reveals itself as part of a sprawling underground city linked by passageways that seem endless. Apply. Some of these tunnels are so long they connect entire towns, with evidence suggesting multiple settlements were part of an underground super network. If Derinkuyu was a city in hiding, apply. Cappadocia was a whole region woven together under stone. The sheer complexity of these subterranean networks is astonishing. Ventilation shafts cut through the layers of rock, apply, allowing fresh air to circulate between levels. Well-supplied water deep below the surface, and storage rooms kept grains, oils, and food supplies safe for long periods of confinement. Apply. The inhabitants engineered massive rolling stone doors, just like those in Derinkuyu, to seal off sections of tunnels and trap invaders should they breach the outer defenses. Apply. Some passageways were deliberately narrow, forcing intruders to crawl single file, making defense far easier for those who knew the terrain. Apply. Every feature reveals a society that not only built with intelligence but with foresight, planning for the day when living underground might mean the difference between life and death. Apply. Why would ancient people go to such extremes? Historians point to waves of invasions that swept across Anatolia. As empires clashed above ground, apply. Local populations were often caught in the middle, forced to flee or perish. The underground cities offered safety, secrecy, and time. Entire communities could vanish below the surface, apply, invisible to raiding armies, and wait until the danger passed. Some scholars believe that the earliest tunnels may even predate organized empires, apply. Serving as primitive refuges long before they were expanded into massive subterranean worlds by Byzantine Christians and later populations. Each era added new chambers, apply, carving deeper into the volcanic rock, transforming temporary shelters into permanent strongholds. And yet, the mystery of Cappadocia's underground labyrinths is far from solved. Apply. Even now, archaeologists continue to uncover new tunnels, suggesting that the scale of the system may be far greater than we realize. Apply. Some claim there could be hundreds of miles of hidden passageways still unexplored, waiting in the dark. The question remains, apply. What kind of threat drove generation after generation to spend such extraordinary effort creating a life below ground? Was it merely fear of human enemies or something larger, famine? Apply. Drought or even catastrophes that have since faded into myth. To walk these tunnels today is to step into the past with every footfall. The air is cool, apply, carrying the faint scent of damp stone. Shadows dance along the rough hewn walls where tools once struck with steady rhythm. In the silence, apply. You can almost hear the echoes of those who lived here, families whispering in the dark, children running through corridors, guards standing watch at choke points, apply, waiting for the signal that danger had passed. It is a haunting reminder that survival often requires disappearing and that entire ways of life can exist out of sight, apply, beneath the very ground we walk on. The underground network of Cappadocia remains one of history's most incredible achievements, not only for its scale but for what it represents. Apply. It is a monument to human ingenuity under pressure, a living archive of fear, faith, and determination. Apply. These tunnels tell us that survival is not always written in monuments that touch the sky. Apply. But sometimes in the secret passageways that plunge into the earth, where the past still lingers, waiting in silence for us to find it. Beneath the bustling streets of modern Edinburgh, Apply, Scotland, lies a shadowed world that few realize exists. Just steps away from the laughter of pubs and the glow of lanterns on cobbled streets, apply, hidden vaults stretch beneath the South Bridge, an underground maze of stone chambers and passageways steeped in centuries of mystery, tragedy, and haunting legend. Apply. These are the Edinburgh Vaults, a place where history's forgotten whispers mingle with chilling tales of survival, crime, and the supernatural. Apply. The vaults were constructed in the late 18th century, originally intended as practical spaces. When the South Bridge was built to connect parts of the city, apply, arches beneath it created empty pockets of stone. Ingenious entrepreneurs quickly transformed these spaces into workshops and storage rooms. Apply. Imagining them as vital extensions of the growing urban hub. At first, cobblers, merchants, and tavern owners set up shop beneath the bridge. Apply, their lives illuminated by candlelight and the dim glow of oil lamps. Goods were stored in these cool stone rooms. Apply, and the city above seemed to carry on without a thought for what was happening just below its surface. But practicality soon gave way to decay. Apply. Poor construction and inadequate sealing allowed rainwater to seep through the cracks of the bridge, dripping into the vaults and leaving them damp, moldy, and perpetually cold. Apply. Respectable businesses began to abandon the chambers, but as one community moved out, another, far more desperate, moved in. By the early 19th century, apply, the vaults had become a haven for Edinburgh's poorest and most marginalized. Families squeezed into pitch black chambers. Apply, building makeshift homes with little more than straw and scraps. The air grew thick with smoke from fires, and the stench of sewage filled the passageways. Apply. Disease ran rampant in these cramped quarters where the light of day never touched, yet alongside the impoverished came those who thrived in darkness. Apply. Criminals quickly recognized the vaults as the perfect hiding place for illicit trade. Smugglers, gamblers, and brothel keepers carved out territory within the labyrinth. Apply. Creating a hidden underworld where the city's vices flourished unchecked. Some stories suggest that body snatchers, Apply, known as resurrectionists, lurked here as well, stealing corpses from graveyards to sell to medical schools for dissection. In these damp, claustrophobic chambers, Apply, human desperation and human cruelty met in equal measure. Over time, the vaults developed a reputation that extended beyond crime and poverty. Whispers of strange sounds, Apply, ghostly apparitions, and an overwhelming sense of dread began to surround them. Apply, visitors claim to feel unseen hands brush against their skin or hear the echo of footsteps when no one else was present. Some describe the heavy presence of sorrow, Apply, as if the walls themselves remembered the suffering of those who once lived and died in the darkness. Paranormal investigators and thrill seekers continue to flock to the vaults, Apply, hoping to capture evidence of lingering spirits. Apply. Among the most famous tales is that of a childlike ghost known as Wee Annie, said to reach for the hands of visitors who wander too close to her chamber. Apply. What makes the Edinburgh Vaults so chilling is not just their haunted reputation, but the tangible history they represent. Apply. These are not myth or legend alone. They are real spaces where real people lived, worked, and suffered. To stand in the vaults today is to breathe the damp, Apply, heavy air that once filled the lungs of the forgotten. The uneven floors and soot-stained ceilings tell of fires lit by families trying to survive. The narrow corridors, Apply, where shadows gather thick and deep, still seem to carry the weight of secrets never spoken. The vaults remained sealed for more than a century before being rediscovered in the 1980s. Apply their existence a reminder of the layers of history that lie just beneath our feet. Above ground, Edinburgh's grandeur flourished. Castles, cathedrals, Apply, and monuments rose high into the sky. Yet below, an invisible city hid in silence, a world of both resilience and ruin. Even now, Apply. The vaults challenge us to confront the darker side of history, where survival often enduring the unthinkable, and where echoes of the past still cling to the cold stone walls. Apply. In the quiet countryside of northern France, where rolling fields stretch toward the horizon, Apply, lies a hidden world etched into the chalky earth, a place where history itself is written not on parchment, but on walls of stone. This is the Naours Caves, Apply, a sprawling network of underground chambers that once served as refuge, sanctuary, and later an unlikely diary of one of humanity's darkest chapters. At first glance, Apply, the entrance seems unremarkable, just another slope into the earth. But once inside, the sheer scale overwhelms you. Nearly 2 miles of tunnels twisting through the bedrock, Apply, once capable of sheltering thousands of people from war, famine, and disaster. The chambers are vast, their ceilings arched by centuries of careful carving, Apply, and the silence within is heavy, as though the walls are holding their breath, guarding memories too sacred to fade. The origins of Naours stretch back to the Middle Ages, Apply, when villagers dug deep into the limestone to create a secure refuge during times of conflict. Northern France, perched between kingdoms, was often a battleground, Apply, and survival demanded innovation. Above ground, fires could consume villages and soldiers could sweep through with little warning. Below ground, in the twisting halls of Naours, Apply, families could disappear completely, safe in the dark, sustained by hidden wells, stables, and storerooms carved by patient hands. This subterranean village was more than a shelter, Apply, it was an act of defiance against the chaos above. But the most haunting and remarkable chapter of Naours came centuries later during World War I. Apply, as battlefields erupted across France and young men from across the globe found themselves entrenched in mud, blood, and horror. Apply, the caves became a place of respite for soldiers stationed nearby. Thousands of them, French, British, Australian, Apply, American, wandered into the chambers during breaks from the front lines. And here in the stillness of those ancient tunnels, Apply, they left their mark in a way no history book could ever fully capture. Carved into the soft limestone are more than 2,800 names, dates, Apply, and messages, graffiti left behind by soldiers between 1916 and 1917. Each inscription is a voice echoing across time. Some are simple, just names etched quickly before moving on. Apply. Others are elaborate, carefully carved with unit numbers, hometowns, or even small drawings. Together, they form an underground memorial. Apply, a raw and intimate record of young men who stood on the edge of mortality and wanted, above all, to be remembered. Imagine a soldier, his hands blistered from trench warfare. Apply, taking a moment to press a knife or bayonet into the wall, carving his name so that even if he never returned home, some part of him would endure. Walking through the caves today, Apply, you cannot help but feel their presence. The walls are alive with voices. You see J. Smith, London, 1916, scratched into the stone, or A. DuPont, Apply Paris alongside the crest of a regiment. Some inscriptions are grouped together, suggesting comrades etched their names side by side. Apply just as they fought side by side in the fields above. And while many of those young men never made it back from the trenches, here their identities remain, preserved in the cool. Apply Unchanging Air of the Caves. The discovery of these inscriptions shocked historians when they were fully documented in the late 20th century. Apply. They weren't just random scratches, they were a treasure trove of human testimony, each name tied to a soldier who once lived, laughed, and perhaps feared he would be forgotten. Apply. For many descendants, tracing those names has been like reaching back through time to touch the hands of ancestors lost to war. Apply. The caves themselves have become a bridge between the living and the dead, a place where memory refuses to fade. Naours is more than stone and shadow. Apply. It is a monument to resilience across centuries. In the Middle Ages, it stood as protection against invading armies. In the 20th century, Apply, it became a canvas for soldiers seeking permanence in the face of death. And today it stands as a haunting reminder that history is not just made by kings and generals, Apply, but by ordinary men and women who carve their existence into the world in whatever way they can. To walk these tunnels is to feel time collapse, to hear whispers in the silence, Apply, and to know that beneath the earth, humanity's will to endure has always found a way. Beneath the prairie town of Moose Jaw in Saskatchewan, Canada, Apply lies a shadowed labyrinth that tells two very different stories, one of hardship and survival, the other of secrecy and crime. To the casual visitor, Moose Jaw is a quiet place. Apply, its streets lined with shops and cafes, but hidden below the sidewalks are tunnels that stretch like veins through the earth carved into the bedrock of history. These passageways, Apply, dim and narrow, whisper of a time when survival meant staying unseen, and when the underground world became both sanctuary and sin. Apply. The first story belongs to Chinese immigrants who arrived in Canada during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Many came with dreams of opportunity, Apply drawn by the promise of work on the Canadian Pacific Railway. But when the last spike was driven and the railroads were complete, their welcome was short-lived. Apply, prejudice, and the infamous Chinese head tax left thousands impoverished and forced to the margins of society. With little protection above ground, many were driven beneath it. Apply, the Moose Jaw tunnels became a refuge for these immigrants, dark, hidden spaces where they could live, work, and survive away from the harsh discrimination they faced. Apply, in those cramped chambers, laundries were established, meals were cooked over flickering lanterns, and beds were carved out of stone alcoves. Imagine a father bending over a washtub, Apply, scrubbing clothes for pennies, while his children played in narrow passageways lit only by candlelight. Here, life was harsh but safer than the streets above. Apply, where violence and exclusion often lurked. It was a hidden world of endurance built by those who had nowhere else to go. But over time, the tunnels took on another, darker reputation. Apply, as the 1920s roared across North America, prohibition swept into law, banning the sale of alcohol. Yet the thirst for liquor did not vanish, it simply went underground. Moose Jaw, Apply, located along key smuggling routes, became a hub of illicit activity, and the tunnels beneath the town provided the perfect cover. Secret stills bubbled in the darkness. Apply, barrels of whiskey rolled silently through passageways, and bootleggers conducted business under the very feet of unsuspecting townsfolk. Apply, rumors began to swirl of powerful figures tied to this hidden trade. Some say the tunnels were even frequented by the notorious American gangster Al Capone. Apply, who allegedly used Moose Jaw as a northern base for his smuggling empire. While historians still debate whether Capone himself ever set foot in the tunnels, Apply, the legend has taken root so deeply that it has become inseparable from the lore of the place. Whether fact or myth, Apply, the idea that one of history's most infamous criminals might have walked those underground halls adds a layer of menace to an already shadowy past. Step into the tunnels today, Apply, and you can almost sense both worlds pressing in on you, the quiet perseverance of the Chinese immigrants and the brazen lawlessness of prohibition smugglers. Apply, the walls seem to hum with stories, the kind that live between fact and folklore. In one moment, you picture a frightened family huddled together, listening to footsteps above, Apply, hoping no one discovers their hidden refuge. In the next, you hear the imagined clink of glasses, the low murmur of gangsters making deals, Apply, the rush of footsteps carrying contraband through hidden roads. The Moose Jaw tunnels embody the dual nature of history, resilience, and exploitation, survival, and secrecy. Apply, they remind us that beneath the calm face of any town may lie an entire hidden world where the forgotten and the infamous walk the same corridors. Apply. To explore them is to peel back the layers of time, to step into spaces that once sheltered the desperate and empowered the daring. In their darkness, Apply, the tunnels hold not only the memory of hardship and crime, but also the unshakable truth that the human story is never simple. It is always tangled, layered, and waiting to be uncovered. Apply. Hidden deep beneath the rolling hills of Wiltshire, England lies one of the Cold War's most closely guarded secrets, a subterranean fortress so vast it could house thousands. Apply. Yet so silent that for decades the public never knew it existed. This was Burlington Bunker, a sprawling underground city designed not for comfort but for survival. Apply. To enter its shadowed corridors is to step back into a time when the world teetered on the edge of nuclear catastrophe, when governments planned for a day they hoped would never come, and when entire societies lived with the silent fear of annihilation. Carved into the limestone quarries near Corsham, Burlington was built in the 1950s at the height of Cold War tensions between East and West. The bunker stretched for over 35 acres underground, large enough to shelter nearly 4,000 people, including the entire British government and royal family should nuclear war erupt. Walking its tunnels feels less like moving through a shelter and more like traversing a hidden metropolis. There were dormitories, kitchens capable of feeding thousands, and even a hospital complete with operating theaters, all tucked away beneath layers of stone and steel. The planners of Burlington envisioned everything. Wells drilled deep into the rock supplied fresh water, while massive generators provided power independent from the outside world. Ventilation systems filtered the air. Designed to keep out the invisible threat of radiation. There were offices for civil servants, communications centers to keep contact with what remained of the outside world. And a telephone exchange linked directly to the national network. Incredibly, Burlington even contained its own broadcasting studio. Ready to deliver messages of survival and order to a terrified population above. In the event of nuclear war, the voice of government would still echo from the underground. Even if the cities above were reduced to ash, walking through these abandoned chambers today, one cannot help but feel the weight of secrecy that once cloaked them. The walls are lined with peeling paint, the remnants of a place frozen on. Rusting phones sit on desks, waiting for calls that never came. In the dormitories, rows of iron bunk beds stand in eerie silence, as if waiting for occupants who mercifully never arrived. The sheer size of the complex stuns the imagination. It was not just a bunker, it was a hidden civilization prepared to rise from the ashes of a shattered world. Yet for all its careful design, Burlington was a monument to fear. It existed because leaders believed nuclear war was not only possible but inevitable. The very presence of such a place reminds us how close humanity came to self-destruction. When just one decision, one miscalculation could have plunged the world into darkness. Burlington was hope carved into stone. But it was also a mirror of the paranoia and mistrust that defined an era. In 2004, Burlington was finally declassified, its secrets revealed to the public. The revelation stunned many. How could an entire underground city designed to keep a nation alive remain hidden for so long? Today, it stands empty. A relic of a time when the threat of nuclear war was an everyday reality, but its silent halls still tell a story of a world balanced on the edge. Of leaders who planned for survival even as they prayed for peace. And so Burlington Bunker endures not as a refuge, but as a reminder. A reminder of the fragility of human civilization, of the lengths we will go to preserve it, and of the shadow that once loomed over every life during the Cold War. To walk its tunnels is to walk through fear itself, and to understand how close we came to losing everything. History often leaves its marks on the surface, in monuments, in ruins, in cities that rise and fall. But sometimes the most powerful echoes lie underground, carved in silence, waiting to remind us of both our greatest dangers and our deepest determination to survive. And with that, our journey through the hidden worlds beneath our feet comes to a close. From cities carved in stone to bunkers built for survival, we've uncovered the secrets that history chose to bury. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and let us know in the comments which of these underground worlds left you most amazed. Until next time, keep exploring the mysteries waiting just beneath the surface.